way in which we practice digital democracy. Mass deliberation platforms. Does anyone know what that means?
Please explain.
It's essentially, you know, you're not voting on something, but you're discussing it. You're coming to, you're having a discussion with a large amount of people in order to become more informed. So, I mean, any kind of discussion forum is a mass deliberation platform, but there are some pretty clever ones out there now. Does anybody know about Polis, P-O-L.is? And what they did is they really realized that the problem with discussion forums often is the replies. When people can reply to another, they don't reply based on the point that's made or on the facts. They can reply emotionally, and replies beget more replies and more replies that become increasingly you know, off topic and maybe more emotionally charged, maybe more nasty. P-O-L.is. That's what they did is they got rid of replies, and everybody can make a statement, and people can agree and disagree with that statement. But then what it does is uses AI to produce a visualization of that group, and it's able to show you the statements that people agree with the most and disagree with the most, and break that down into different groups. Voting platforms, and there's a few of those examples around. I run one called New Vote. Signature collection. So I know that in Boulder, Colorado, the city there has just passed a law that said for the first time that citizens would be able to collect signatures electronically. And this is you know, the first I know of in the world that's allowed us to do. Does anybody dispute that?
Yeah. There are also tools like for the ECI, for the since years you can collect signatures online. You need 1 million to launch an initiative. We have in Germany, there are some, so this is organized on the local level. There are some platforms where you can also is allowed to collect online signatures. So it's not the first one in Colorado.
Sure. Actually, now that you've reminded me, there's consult. It's usually the case around the world with jurisdictions that have in place initiatives and referenda that signatures must be gathered beforehand. And the default situation is that those signatures have to be collected with ink, you know, in person. They're just recently, just in the newest forms of citizens' initiatives and referenda, like ECI and like Boulder, which has legislated it but hasn't actually started it. So this is almost like the cutting edge of you know, citizens' initiative and referenda, the formal mechanisms joining with a digital kind of technology. Okay? At least the context that I'm using this signature collection is talking about initiative and referenda, which is the usual case is that you have to collect a certain amount of signatures. If those signatures are validated, then a question will go to the people. We're done with registration, e-voting, electronic voting. So what I'm talking about there is where you have a normal election, but instead of, you know, going down to the polling station and using a piece of paper and putting that in the ballot, there will be an electronic machine there. We've had this for quite some time, probably about 2 decades, but that is really quite distinct from what I describe as digital democracy. That is, it's a different way of doing the actual voting part, but nothing else about that system has changed whatsoever. It's not a direct voting mechanism, it's just a replacement of the way that you do voting for a representative system. These things are not necessarily all completely separate, because you could have, for example, a voting platform that's also an online community, or you could have an online community that also does participatory budgeting. So these are examples of all different types of digital democracy kind of platforms and so on. What I want to talk about now are the factors, the major factors that we can pull out of those things. And the first one is government versus non-government. Okay? So, yeah, I take your point that a signature collection, you know, sort of platform for referenda and initiative could be both. It could be formal government or it could be non-government. Okay, yeah. but I don't want to spend any more time on that. Another really major factor is whether we are anonymous or not. Anonymous versus open. So I know yesterday there was discussion around Facebook and in Cambodia and the dangers around digital democracy, right? But there's a very big difference between being on social media and saying something controversial in an authoritarian regime and, let's say, adding anonymously to a wiki so that more people understand the issue, or e-voting, which means that you go into a polling place and nobody's able to see how you vote and you're able to vote there. So, just the last session I went to was around the declaration. What declaration are we going to make for this this year in Taichung? And they said, we're worried about digital democracy because of this and that. And I just want to say, look, understand the complexity of digital democracy and be specific. Yes, there is real problems in some areas if you are open identity and you're in a jurisdiction where there's laws or there's unwritten laws that could punish you. But don't besmirch digital democracy just because there are problems with some parts of digital democracy. So I guess one of the main things I want to say. Another really big important thing is open source. Versus black box. Does anyone want to explain what that means? Yeah, go.
Either the source code of the platform is free and available for everyone, so they can replicate the platform in another jurisdiction, let's say, or it is proprietary.
Proprietary,
and people need to buy to acquire, let's say, the license to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. So, open source is almost like a movement now, and it's been a movement for some time, of people who genuinely just want to share the work that they do. They put it out into the world. They may or may not be trying to offer a service alongside it and make some money off it, but they are willing to let their code be used by anybody for any reason. Can everybody think of some really famous examples of open source? Linux, exactly. Android. Mm-hmm. So you get what they call the thousand eyes effect. You have developers all the way around the world that can look at the code. If they can see a vulnerability, they can help protect it. Whereas if your code is hidden, there might be holes there, and it's only up to your small team of developers to spot that before a black hat, a negative person, a dangerous person can try and exploit that. So open source has its advantages, but if you make something open source and you don't have enough developers that are working on it, that can also be a risk, because you could be opening up your source code to anybody to make an attack. So you want to have a pretty strong community around open source technology before you can really trust it. All right, another factor that I want to talk about is verified users. And I'm not saying verse, I'm going to put a spectrum to say unverified.
This means something for the, how to shape an online community.
Mm-hmm.
How about affordability? Affordability.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's great, yeah. So let's just say free versus
hey.
fee. Yep, very good factor. Really good one. I mean, it's less of a versus thing. I think it's just around data use.
Data security.
Security. Transparency. Yeah. Data use, yeah. Okay. Opportunities and challenges for digital democracy. So, we've kind of defined what we're talking about, what digital democracy is. We've got a whole range of examples of the breadth of what digital democracy is. And we now know what these major factors are And we've seen a couple examples of digital democracy. And so now, I mean, I don't have anything written down for this. This is entirely crowd-generated. Let's talk about those opportunities that we have with digital democracy and the challenges. So let's start with basics. Why would we want to use digital democracy, for example?
Vote via an app, for example. I mean, instead of going to a ballot, it takes time and stuff.
Just throw them at me.
Somebody else?
One for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think digital democracy gives us a chance to speed up the decision-making process.
I suppose there's a challenge there though as well. If we think about the democratic theory that we've learned, we know that time is a valuable resource and that can't have, as Andreas calls it, fast food democracy. We need to also be deliberating, we need to be thinking. So I think we could probably put speed accelerated there, but on this side, we probably want to say something about the challenge of slowing things down.
Can you put it down? Put it down now so you won't forget.
Fast food democracy.
About administration, maybe less bureaucracy, or is
Okay, yeah, right. So the speed is accelerated
counting votes
because
that's
of
faster, yeah.
right, yeah, counting votes, bureaucracy.
In the city districts, we have a formal signature collection, but I've been having a hard time.
Okay, so that's the challenge: is getting it out, getting out the exposure. Yeah. Actually, Eugenie, do you know from the votes that you've held whether there's any findings to do with age and use of the voting?
You mean like, is it more for young people?
Yeah, did you find this?
Well, actually, so since a student, it's more for young age. But Estonia, one of the leaders, recently I've been on their presentation, and they said that now it's about, I think about 45% voting online during the elections, and they said that no correlates with age at all. So like we have the same age on the paper voting and the same voting age on the internet voting. And I think those guys, we can believe that.
Yeah. I remember, I can't remember his name right now, the fellow from Madrid City Council, when they... Pablo Soto. Yeah, Pablo Soto, yeah. When they implemented Madrid Decide, the opposition, were crying, only young people would vote, it won't be representative, all of these objections. He said from day one, there was a spread of, a representative spread of ages. This is a misconception that we think only young people would use the technology. I agree. I don't think it's the case. Anyway, this panel doesn't think so.
I think the challenge is probably in most of the countries to create something in between so that the connection between the old system and the new system works properly. And then you can go over, once it works, to only digital.
Yes, some migration steps, something like this. Yeah.
Very common issue is a security challenge.
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to say that, but you have to say it. You have to say it.
Concerning security, I think this is more for if the government will adopt digital democracy and if the digital democracy will not go with the same way where government is pushing countries or their own interested maybe. So they can just adopt this policy and try to manipulate with the direct democracy. For instance, creating fake accounts, dead accounts, or something like this.
Yeah, I think security, like Evgeny said, is very complex. It starts from your device. If you have a virus on your device that's recording every keystroke that you make, then it doesn't matter how secure and encrypted the code is going from your device to the server and from the server to the database, and that's blockchain and secure. And if you've got a virus on your computer, that's still recording everything that you do. So it's what they describe as end-to-end security. It's the whole process. And I think Evgeny makes a really good point about government. There is a fear, and I think we saw it when Switzerland was using online voting. It sort of went from, in the town square voting to allowing people to vote by post, which is very common. And then some of the cantons allow people to vote online. And there was recently a campaign, I think successful, to disallow the online voting. And that was mainly because they don't trust the government with that data. You know, because unless you've secured that data through a constitutional amendment, there's nothing really particularly to stop a government, the next government, from saying, all right, for national security reasons, we'll need to have a look at this data here and see who voted against or for a particular proposal. And so you think, okay, maybe you can never really trust a government, even a Western, well, maybe especially a Western government. And so we need an independent organisation to do that. But then the question is, where is the data stored with that independent organisation? It's on the blockchain. Literally everybody has a copy of the blockchain. And it's in the encryption of the code that is important. I have doubts as to whether we can truly encrypt something in a way that could never be unencrypted through future technology, through quantum technology, for example. So there is a real issue there. And the other thing is that if, my platform, for example, uses a whole bunch of services. It uses Amazon service, it uses one called Mongo, it uses Express, it uses a few other things. If any one of those wish to comply with the government, then our security gets compromised from that. So that's kind of okay when we're just talking about universities voting on whether they want to, do this or that, but up to a certain level. But then there is a real issue there around security. I don't think anybody has the magic bullet on that yet. I think if you talk to experts about internet security, they'll tell you it is a constant battle. It's a battle that we can generally win, and we are generally winning it, but it's always about staying one step ahead of the people trying to break that security. So by committing ourselves to online voting, there is this belief essentially in ourselves to always be one step ahead in terms of security. And that's where, sometimes the paper ballot is actually a very safe and secure way of voting. And I think, with respect, I think it might continue to exist for quite some time. I think we might use digital democracy to collect the signatures, because they're public anyway. People are saying publicly, I support this idea, to go to an initiative. But like what they did in Madrid and Barcelona and many of the councils across Europe and Central America that are using the software console, they will often have a paper ballot to accompany the online sort of collection of views, simply, in order to secure people's anonymity. And that ties back to people's safety. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a little bit. Security question is really important, yeah, and people believe that security is important. But there's actually one pretty easy conception, is benefits versus risks, right? And this is the big question. Would the benefits from online elections, online voting, or any sort of online interaction will be more than risks that it brings? And this conception brings me to the recent debates about online banking or online money transferring and stuff like this. There was a huge campaign like, we shall not make the online banking so easy because people can lose their money, company can lose their money because of the hack. And there's a lot of cases when large company lost a lot of money because of the hack, because of the treatment or stuff like this. But the problem with the democracy right now is the decreasing turnout and populist uprising. And if this trend will continue, then we will have 15% of turnout, and the populists can easily bring 5% more and win all the elections. And that will be bizarre, that will be a catastrophe. And online elections bring a lot of people back to the polling station, digital polling station. So that is a benefits, that are the benefits, right? And we need to just consider risks and benefits, do a lot of pilots, trying this out in municipalities, see the results, engaging people, explaining the difficulties, and elaborate something that in the end will bring more benefits than risks. That's all.